Would be the 1996 quarterfinal India-Pakistan at Bangalore. I remember Ajay Jadeja's assault on Waqar Younis, and at that time, no one could dream about hitting Waqar Younis for six like that. Venkatesh Prasad got him out, Amir Sohail, and there was a bit of words exchange, it was tense and all that. Probably that game remains one of my favorite games in the World Cup, for the energy it had, for the excitement it had.
2015 South Africa versus New Zealand semi-final. Arguably their best fielder of all time, A.B. de Villiers, fumbled a run out, and from there on things just went in the wrong direction. Eventually Graham Elliott hitting that 6 to Dale Steyn, and the post-match scenes where almost every South African player was like in tears.
2003 final between India and Australia. There was just this very enduring image of Ricky Ponting sort of just taking away Indian hopes completely in that final. For I think a couple of weeks after that final, the only thing we were discussing was whether Ricky Ponting has a spring in his bat, whether they cheated in the final. Somehow after the kind of World Cup India had, it was just very hard to come to terms with the fact that that World Cup was not ours.
2019 World Cup final between England and New Zealand. Everyone in office was supporting New Zealand except me, especially towards the end in the final over when England were leading 15 runs, I guess, and when Stokes hit that 6 and then the overthrow, I was just like screaming and having a lot of fun. Even the tie, going into the super over and winning on boundary count, when everyone is saying it was not probably the ideal way to win the World Cup, still the trophy went to England and they were the World Cup champions, so that's what counts at the end of the day.
2011 India-Pakistan semi-final. I still remember I was 13 years old, and I remember that it was declared a holiday in Mohali where the match was being held, and I was like pretty upset by the fact that there was no holiday in Pondicherry. So I decided to bunk my afternoon classes and sports in the evening. Get my parents to sign off on a sick leave note for my teacher, but he was so convinced that I had bunked the class because, well, it was pretty obvious that any cricket lover would have bunked their classes to watch India-Pakistan. So while he did expel me he didn't let me sit in class for a week. And India went on to win the final. He himself was so happy that he called us back in, and well, I was back in math class. And
2015 semi-final between India and Australia. I managed to sneak in my phone in my bag, and I put it under the desk and I was checking the scores every like 5 or 10 minutes. I somehow managed to not get caught, but it all ended in a heartbreaking loss for India.
The 2019 semi-final where Dhoni was run out by a couple direct hit, because that was one of my most special memories where a group of friends were sitting and watching the match together, and we had one television in the whole floor, and we were living in the officers' mess back then, and we were sitting and watching the match together. And once the dismissal happened, in fact once the decision was appealed, there was pin drop silence, and after that the crowd started scattering and very few people were left by the time the match ended.
2011 quarter final between India and Australia. My favorite player growing up, Suresh Raina, hit the winning runs, forging a partnership with Yuvraj Singh, who scored a 50 in that chase. And that was considered as the toughest game of the tournament for India. And after that we went on to beat Pakistan and Sri Lanka and win our home World Cup.
So the most memorable moment of a World Cup has to be the 2011 World Cup final. That is one of the last times and one of the last cricket matches I think I watched with my dad. After that, like, we didn't sit down, it didn't happen, we didn't sit down for cricket matches as such. Like the whole family sat together, a piping hot cup of tea in the evening, fritters.
Dhoni came into bat in the 2011 World Cup final. I decided to sit on our dining table in my home in Thrissur. So after Dhoni started scoring some runs, I didn't want to jinx anything and I just sat there. Dhoni hit the winning runs. I jumped out of the table and just hugged my dad.
India won, of course, everybody knows. But then me and my family went out, and like it was midnight and we were there in Connaught Place and it was all jam-packed, and India Gate, it was all crowded and everybody was celebrating, and that is one of the core memories that I have.
2011, because three things happened at that time. I got my first bat, India won the World Cup, and I used to get money after India's win, so I used to go back and buy ice creams.
I was in school and we were having a lot of discussion regarding who will win the World Cup before the tournament started, and I decided to support Sri Lanka because they had a pretty strong team. So I was at my home watching the final with my dad. So as soon as Dhoni hit that six, I had to switch off my phone because my friends had started calling me to abuse me. So I had to keep it off for like 2-3 days to survive.
Being a Dhoni fan, like seeing him finish with the last ball six with Ravi Shastri's commentary, like that made it memorable. So even now, if I feel a bit down or all, I'll go to YouTube and randomly watch the final and relish those moments.